Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Yes, we are welcome to this awesome training today. We are going to introduce our guest first. And here we have in our midst Mr. Ayo Ade, Mr. Ayo Adeyeri. Yeah, he is currently the managing partner and chief risk officer at FAC Consulting Firm. Our guest for today, Mr. Ayuade, has more than 15 years experience cutting across several industries and sectors in Nigeria. Yeah, he has also worked as the head of finance and chief finance officer at TSL Marine Limited, a top indigenous offshore marine service company. Prior to that, I guess he was also the head of enterprise control and compliance at Honeywell Group. Wow. He has also worked as senior internal control and audit officer at Ohando PLC prior to joining Honeywell Group. Yeah, our trainer, Mr. Ayo Hade, is also a fellow of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, the ICANN that we know, and associate member of Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. He is also an alumni of Aberdeen Business School of Robert Gordon University, Scotland, where he bagged his master's in financial management. So we can see that our guest for today is actually a professional and an expertise in risk management. So today he's going to be taking us through the introductory part of the topic risk management. And so I want every one of us to take notes even as he speaks, and we should not forget to put down our questions if we have any for our guest speaker. So, Mr. Ayo Ade will kindly be patient even as you take us through this journey of risk management. So, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ibukon. Thank you for that introduction. Hello, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. So just give me a second.
All right, no problem, sir.
Okay, so while I'm trying to do that, I want to welcome all of you to this session, the series on enterprise risk management. And I believe and I hope that all of us will enjoy the session, and this will spur a whole lot of interest in the young finance professional to be able to see ahead of where the professional ICANN, tax, internal audit, and the likes are actually taking us to in the 21st century. So 1 minute, please. I'm still struggling with my screen.
All right, no problem, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, as I was trying to explain to you, that the field of finance, accounting, and audit is experiencing monumental changes, same way you see it happening in the world of IT and artificial intelligence. Principally because of the explosion in technology, so which, as we all know, is changing the dynamics of every profession, from accounting to medicine to the core IT to manufacturing, almost every facet of our lives are now being transformed by IT. So the same is also applicable to us in finance and accounting profession. And therefore, this particular subject is specifically chosen to enable us to prepare ourselves for future opportunities in our field, and also to enable the younger ones to acquire those skills that are required going forward, not the skills of the past, which will no longer be relevant in few months, few years' time, but skills of the future that will enable us to still be very relevant in our profession and career. So that is the objective of this series. And at the end of it also, some of us will be very much interested in expanding our professional qualification into the area of enterprise risk and risk-based auditing. So, 1 minute please, I'm still struggling with my screen. Ayodeji, please, can you help out? So, because we have just 1 hour.
Okay, if you are using your system, I think where you are seeing like to cut the call, is that you check those 3 buttons or you see a present button? Where can you
What
see
I have
on
here is whiteboard. When you click on the 3 buttons, the whiteboard, the change layout, I can't see any.
Okay, if not that 3 button, that's what will show on your phone. But if it's laptop, where
Yes,
you
it's
see
laptop.
microphone, those you see a button like a present now. I think you should be having 5 icons there. So one of those icons should be for present now.
Okay, yes, present now, yes.
Okay, that should be
Okay, so your entire screen.
yes. Sir.
Thank you. Can you see my screen? Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
You can see my screen. Good.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. Good. So let's go into it. So, introduction to enterprise risk management. I subtitle it "Making of 21st Century Auditors, Control, Compliance Executive in the New Dispensation." You see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Good. Please, can someone tell me what you see?
Okay, there's a rat and there's a trap before it, and I think there's a food on the trap. I think the rat stepped on the trap.
And very attractive food. But it's not all. Don't let the rat go. It's only rats, so there's something else.
There is color red on it.
Well, that is not the color red. Please, can you look at it? Maybe it's
It's looking like a helmet.
excellent. An helmet. So what can we make out of this picture? The rat
Knowing the risk ahead is kind of well prepared for the task that it's going to face in no time.
So the rat is hungry, he saw the food, but he also discovered that it is not just the food, there is something that is unusual. Maybe it's not doesn't know what it is, but he said, "Man, food, I have to eat it. What must I do? I have noticed that there's something behind the food, and this is danger. So let me prepare." And therefore the rat went back, got helmet, a very powerful one. You can see the size of the helmet. So that if this trap should snap, well, at least it's not going to break my head. So even if it catches me, it may not break my head, because the most critical part of the rat is the head. Therefore, this rat has come well prepared. This is a form of what? Risk. And risky activities. As a matter of fact, life itself is a risk, as we all know. This risk is embedded in all human activities. It then means that risk may be difficult to avoid. Is it possible for us to do without risk? I don't think so.
No, sir.
Our going out every day is full of risk. When you sleep on your bed, you wake up in the morning, you go to your bedroom, shower, go out of the house, get a bus, or drive a car, get to your office. All of these are embedded. There's so many risks in it. So life is full of risk. So if human life is full of risk, it also means that human activities are also full of risk. And when we talk about human activities here, we're not talking about business, corporate, professional life are full of risk. For instance, when we all set out to go to higher institution to acquire our professional certification or career or degrees, we had in mind a lot of things. We believe that once we finish school, we come out, we're going to use that certificate, get a good job, and then our life will be transformed and the likes. But experience has shown now that this may not always be the case. So that is part of risk that we face as human beings. So as we face risk as human beings, so also our businesses and corporate organizations, they are also full of risk in every activity. It is that they undertake. So the essence of this that we should be mindful of, it also creates opportunity for us as professionals. You see this picture of this guy enjoying himself. If you can look at it very well, it's actually somersaulting with a bike, and you can see his head is almost going down the water, and there's a bit of some dangerous objects around that side. But this particular human being is not well prepared, unlike the rats that we saw. So if animals will manage risk, it means that human beings will do a better job. So what is risk, therefore? Like I explained in the previous slide, this term risk, is used in many ways and is given different definitions depending on the field and context. If I ask us, what do we understand by risk? Can anyone help us? What is your own understanding of risk from what we have said so far? Anyone?
Risk can be termed or defined as simply as uncertainties that lies ahead in a course of action, either daily as individuals, businesses, or corporate entities.
Excellent. Uncertainty that lie ahead of us. But it's not just uncertainties. It is uncertainties that are capable of bringing out undesirable outcomes. I mean, if the uncertainty is positive, I'm not sure we'll be so worried. If, for instance, tomorrow, even though we do not know what will happen, but tomorrow is bringing goodies, I'm sure we'll be very happy to welcome it. So, even though that is part of risk, but that is what we call opportunities in risk. But the risk we're talking about is uncertainties with undesirable outcome, negative outcome, things that can make us, stop us from achieving our desired objective. That is what we call risk. Any event, occurrence or non-occurrence of which is capable of producing undesirable outcome. That is what we call risk. So, what are we going to learn today? We're going to understand these various concepts of risk. We're going to see different risk definitions according to different school of thought and sectors. We're going to see relationship between risk and objectives. We're going to see types of business risk, which is our focus area. Definition of risk management. We're going to see consequence of not managing company risk from other companies that we're looking at as samples. Where we're going to look at traditional risk management versus enterprise risk management. And we will stop today's session at looking at the definition of enterprise risk management. So this is an introductory part of this course. So it's also going to be interactive. So I've not added a lot of details because I want us to start together. So by the time we get to the next session in 2 weeks' time, then we'll begin to go into the detail of enterprise risk management. Different definition of risk. Number one here from Managing Successful Program said an uncertain event or set of events which, should it occur, will have an effect on the achievement of objectives. If it occurs, it will have an effect on the achievement of the desired objective. A risk, therefore, is measured by a combination of probability of threat, probability of the event happening, and the impact, or what they call the magnitude of its impact. If we want to measure risk, we have to look at the probability of occurrence and when it happens, when it occurs, what is the impact. That is also the difference between the risk and uncertainty. Business love to face risk, but they do not want to face uncertainty. Because uncertainties on its own is worse than risk. For risk, you have the probability of its occurrence and you also have the impact, the magnitude of its impact. And you can, if you understand these two or you are able to measure these two components of risk, you will be in a position to manage your risk. But for uncertainties, one, we don't even know what it is. If we know what it is, we don't know if it's going to happen or not. Even if you know if it's going to happen or not, we do not know the impact. So if you do not have all those three factors, you cannot really measure what the likelihood or the impact on your business. And therefore, that is why you see, for instance, most foreign companies are always very worried in investing in what they call emerging markets because there are no systems that define how they can measure their risk. And for instance, if Nigeria is taking loan now like we do, when they are calculating the interest on loan, there's what they call country risk in determining in pricing that loan. Pricing loan means calculating the interest that you will pay on the loan. So in the UK, for instance, UK want to borrow money from international market, they may get it at a cheaper rate compared to if Nigeria want to borrow, because we do not carry the same country risk. So they feel UK is a more structured country, and therefore they are able to estimate or measure the risk. Unlike Nigeria, where the system is not so very structured. Therefore, it makes it difficult for them to measure their risk. Therefore, they factor that into their risk computation in form of what they call country risk premium. And that is why you see us borrowing at a very high rate. So, the second definition of risk here from Business Dictionary is saying a risk is a probability or threat of damage, injury, loss, or any other negative occurrence that is caused by external or internal vulnerability and that may be avoided through preemptive action. This one is coming from Business Dictionary. You can see it's looking at risk from another angle. This could also relate to IT people. If people that do IT risk, you'll be looking at vulnerabilities of your IT system and the impact of that on your enterprise risk. So this definition will suit that particular sector. The third definition here is saying risk is the combination of the probability or frequency of occurrence of a defined threat. Mark this particular definition: probability and frequency of occurrence of a defined threat. In other words, the threat is known and defined, unlike when you talk about uncertainty, where you have not defined what it is. So here, you have defined what the risk is and all the opportunities, as the case may be, and then the magnitude of the consequence of their occurrence. This is coming from Association of Project Management, and of course, you will understand why this definition is like this for this association, because they are doing project management. Excuse me. If you have done Prince 2 or any of the project management certification, you will understand why risk management is very essential when you manage projects. Now, before you can talk about risk, you must have what we call objective. For instance, if I have no objective, if I have nothing to achieve in life or in my profession or in my career, do I face any professional risk? If I don't want to be an accountant, I don't want to be a risk expert, I don't want to be a finance person, I don't want to be an auditor, I just want to sleep, wake up every day and eat. You see, I will not face any of these risks we're talking about. The risks that we face are individual human risks. I'm not going to face professional or career risk. Why? Because I have no objective. Another example is if Nigeria is going to the World Cup and we have no objective, you just want to go and participate, just to mark register that you qualified for World Cup. So if you are beating first round and everybody beats you, you have not suffered any risk because you really didn't have, you are not expecting anything. So if you do not have expectation, you are not going to have a defined. So for you to have risk, you must have what we call objective. So this is going to be much more useful to us when we get into enterprise risk management proper. So the very first thing in identifying your risk is to set your objective. I want to qualify as a chartered accountant. That is your objective. So now, what are the risks against my qualification? If I want to qualify as a chartered accountant, there are things I need to do. One, I have to register with ICANN. Two, I have to register for exam. Three, I have to either attend lectures or I read and get all the materials on my own. Four, I have to prepare. And then five, I have to attend the exam. Assuming I registered, I paid for my exams, I read, studied and prepared, but I did not attend the exam. What happened? Will I achieve my objective? No. Even though I have done some things, but yet, because I have not completed everything I need to do to achieve my objective, I will still not achieve that objective. So you must clearly define your objective as the very first step in any risk management. Definition of your objective. Here, I want to give us an idea of what we're talking about objective. Every organization is in business to achieve certain objectives, as you will know. Even for those that are not for profit, they also have their objective, which is either to render social services like government, to provide security, provide infrastructure and the rest for the citizens. So every organization has their corporate objective. Now, if you do not define your corporate objective, then it's very difficult for you to do your risk identification. You will not be able to define what your risks are. If you are not stepping out of your house, you're not going to have risk of road accident, because road accident does not apply to a man that is in his house unless the house is located on very close to the road. So every corporate organization has a vision. That is the beginning of corporate objective. What is the vision of this organization? Here I give an example of a vision: to become African global conglomerate that creates significant value for all economies. This is vision of a company. They want to become African global conglomerate that creates significant value for all economies. Now, from this vision, you will have an idea of what that company is set out to achieve. So immediately, you have this kind of vision. You also know that you may not be able to achieve this vision. Every event that will stop you from achieving this vision is what we call risk. Now, vision is the future state of things, future state that you see that company becoming or achieving. But how would this vision be accomplished? That is where you see the mission statement. The mission statement. So vision without a mission is a dream. A vision without a mission is what? A dream. Because you are just looking at the future, you are not taking any step to get to that vision. So it becomes what? A dream. And what happens to dream when we wake up? Hello, are we together?
Yes, we are together.
Good.
Yeah, we're
so
going.
If I have a vision and I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming. Sometimes we have very lovely dreams. That dream, maybe you say, a lot of things, and then you just don't want to work here. The vision that drives what you do every day to achieve it. And that is where vision comes. So now, for you to have a vision, you must have what we call strategic priority, or strategic imperative, or strategic action plan. Action plans or strategy are those specific action steps that you're taking every day to achieve your vision, take you to your vision. Strategic action are those steps that enables you to take your vision to your destination. Your destination is your vision. Your vision is the steps you are taking, and now you need to define those steps, and those are your strategic priorities. So this company that wants to be African global conglomerate to create significant value, how is it going to achieve that? So he has to break down this beautiful vision and mission statement. Most corporate organizations, you see their vision and mission, very beautiful, but they are lacking in where I was. That is not factored. That vision and mission statement, and that in itself is what? A risk. That in itself is a risk. It's an example of what we call strategic or business. We're going to get that subsequent slide. So you need to define your strategic objective or strategic priorities, which is what will enable you to get to your vision. So, like in the case of this company, you want to achieve its vision by one, creating value around business value chain. It means you must have defined their business value chain. Business value chain means, where do I want to play? Which sector, which area, which level do I want to play? If, for instance, you are producing food items, and your farm is located in Zamfara, will you be able to produce anything? No, because of the risk of insecurity. Grow competence within the sector. This one is telling you how it's going to achieve its vision. You want to create value around the business value chain. You want to grow his competence, his ability, capability to deliver on those value he has created. You want to diversify his portfolio. He doesn't want to be in one sector. Such that, remember, he said he wants to become African global conglomerate. What is a conglomerate, if I may ask us? What is a conglomerate?
Chain of businesses.
Thank you. Chain of businesses. So you can see this part. Very, very happy in strategic priority. Because one company or one sector company and you call yourself a conglomerate, you will see that there's a misalignment between vision and strategy. Like you see in the previous slide, they say objective, risk, and control. There must be objective and risk. You must align your objectives and your vision. You must align the two. So in the strategy here, you want to diversify his portfolio, and doing this will make him to become a conglomerate. Then he said he wants to devise creative financing options because he knows that finance is very critical and strategic to becoming a global conglomerate. Therefore, he's not going to rely on only one source of finance. He's going to devise creative financing options to help him to become global conglomerate. It's also going to build and manage talent. This is not a one-man show. One man cannot make a forest. He needs talent. And he wants to build and manage talent. So we can see, then you see in the next one. Manage enterprise what? Manage enterprise. Assuming this is not part of his strategic priority, I would have told you that this man is what? Dreaming. He's dreaming, he does not have a vision. Why? Because every business must face risk. And for you to be a global conglomerate, they're going to combine different types of risk, from your own country risk to international risk, both political, legal, regulatory, currency, market. You can imagine all kinds of risks that the company will be exposed to. Therefore, it definitely must have as part of its priority how to manage its enterprise risk. Of course, they also need to manage stakeholders and achieve operational excellence. So these are ways this man has set out his own strategic priorities, and this is why he's able to shoot at achieving his vision. Now, therefore, in my own definition, I said risk is essentially any condition within, that is within the organization and around it, that is internal and external factors of an organization which have the capacity to prevent that organization or individual from achieving its own defined objective. This is my own definition of risk. Any is an essential, any condition within internal factor of the company and around its external factors which have the capacity to prevent that organization or individual from achieving its own defined objectives. So this is my definition of risk. For instance, this is also applicable to us as individuals. Imagine you are preparing for ICANN or any other professional exams, and you have a girlfriend who, it is when you are preparing for your exam that is always quarreling with you. So what would you do if you have such a person? She will not quarrel with you before exam. When the exam is 2 weeks time, that is when she will pick up the quarrel, and she will not allow you to study. operational risk, finance risk, and business risk. All of these are what every company or every business faces achieving their objectives. So you can see them here. So let's break them down a little bit. When we talk about business risk, here we're saying a business or a company facing a business risk, the risk that that company may not be able to continue in business as a result of industry dynamics, wrong strategy, or a combination of several other risks. And what are the risk factors? What are the things that will cause this? That is what we call risk factors. So when we are talking about enterprise risk management, the first thing is to define your objective. The next is to even identify what are these risks that the company is facing. So there's a process to enterprise risk management. We're going to be going into those details later. So risk factor is part of our risk identification. We need to know what are the risks, what are the factors that will result in this business. Number one here is wrong business strategy. Wrong business strategy. There was a company that wanted to, then was the other government of Nicolo Obasanjo. Then they were promoting cassava farming, and they were compelling our flour mills to include 10% of cassava flour in the processing of flour in flour. And they also encourage companies to invest in the cassava value chain. So there was a particular company that invested so much money in this cassava business, and what they did was to set up a massive company on Lagos Ibadan Expressway. And the plant was to use cassava to produce ethanol. I'm sure we all know, some of us know what ethanol is. This is like fuel that you get from cassava. We also get it from sugarcane and some other grain. They actually mix them with your PMS, your petrol, in some other countries. So they want to produce ethanol. Now, ethanol will also be used in your alcoholic beverages and in some other, like your spirit. The spirit you use in medical practices, it has some element of ethanol. What you are using now to do your sanitizer, what they call it, hand sanitizer, also has some element of ethanol. So this company saw huge potential and they wanted to tap it. So they decided to set up a factory. Now their business plan was based on this popular report from many of the international organizations, where they classified Nigeria as the largest producer of cassava in the world. I also read that document and I also paid the price. Now, this company set up. What happened to them? After the president commissioned the factory, they started looking for cassava. They could not get enough cassava to power the plant. This company had to do what you call backward integration. They had to go to a locality in Oyo State where they acquired about 3,000 acres of farmland to produce cassava. You see, they did not set out to become cassava farmers. They set out to become a cassava processing company. But they did not know that there's not going to be enough supply of cassava for their plant. So the risk factor I'm talking about here is wrong business strategy. Something went wrong in their strategy. They did not do enough due diligence to actually study whether there will be sufficient cassava to run their plant. Cassava don't grow every day. The fastest growing variety of cassava will take you about 8 to 9 months. You can imagine if you have to wait for 9 months to run your plant. Meanwhile, you run your plant every day. So wrong business strategy is the risk factor, and it can lead to what we call business risk. Industry dynamics, things are changing. Before, We used to have a company, for those of you that are into photography or you have an idea, a company called Kodak. They were producing, what do you call it now? Film exposure for cameras. We also used to have a company called Olympia typewriter. Do we know it? Some of us, do we know it? Olympia typewriter. You will also remember that there used to be a time that some students will apply to study typing and shorthand in schools. And what do you call it now? Secretariat administration. You know, some people apply for such jobs because then secretary used to be a profession. Used to be a job. A lot of people will, because every organ must have secretary those days. But do you still have companies employing such typists and shorthand people? No, that time has passed. So industry dynamics. So Olympia typewriter is no longer in business because nobody is using typewriter anymore. There's now company. So that is industry dynamics. Technology, of course, we all know technology has changed everything, including accounting profession. For those of us who are a little bit older, those days, if you go to a bank or a big company, you're going to see a large hall that is full of accountants. They are doing, what do you call it now, ledgers. There's sales ledger, purchase ledger, bank ledger, this ledger, that one, so many of them. And they were all seated and the posting and be recorded. But these days now, you have software that does your accounting for you. So that is the effect of technology. And I can assure you that the next few years, you're not going to be having a lot of jobs for accountants anymore. I'm not scaring you. I will show you a video later, not today, of the software we're working on that is able to create accounting entry from source document on its own through artificial intelligence. All you need is the invoice from your supplier, which you will receive by email. You're going to copy the invoice and post into the platform of the software, and it's able to extract relevant information and create journal entries on its own. So instead of 2-3 people posting that transaction, only one person will post that transaction. That is the effect of technology on business and even our profession. So these are examples of risk factors. So when you are analyzing risk of a business, you're going to be looking at what are those things, what are those factors that are capable of throwing this business into problems. That is what we call risk factors. And of course, remember we define our risk as both factors, events that will stop us from achieving our objective and the impact of this event, probability of its occurrence and the impact. So if you look at my right hand of the slide, you will see impact. If we're having business risk, it means we're going to have what? Increased operational costs. Like the company I mentioned, they had to go back to have a farm. They never planned to acquire 3,000 acres. That has increased their cost. They will need to employ people to work on the farm. Second impact here, low turnover or missed opportunity. They were not able to start their plant because there's no raw material. So these are things that impact any business that is not managing it very well. Market risk. You see examples of market risk here because every business works in a market. And when we talk about market here, we do not mean a particular place. We mean your customers and your environment that impact on the way you do your business. It also includes your competitors. So you see risk factors for market, price, raw materials, foreign exchange, interest rate, and the rest of them. We're going to go into detail of this in subsequent series. So I'm just showing us this slide to let us understand the depth of enterprise risk management and opportunities that are there for us as professionals. We cannot go out of fashion. Even if technology is taking over some of our jobs, the same technology is creating other opportunities for us. it is for us also as professionals to do our own personal risk assessment, apply this principle we're discussing today, even into our own personal lives and career, and see how best we can take advantage of this opportunity. For every risk, there is an opportunity waiting. So, risk management is an opportunity for finance professionals because that is the new phase of our profession. System takes over the traditional accounting job of create our next series. We have compliance risk, or what we call regulatory risk. It's also part of the risk that every company is exposed to. Now, for those of us who read news, multi-choice was taken to court by Federal Inland Revenue, and they were asked to pay how much? Then they were to pay 1.8 trillion as tax liability. 1.8 trillion. Imagine that. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Compliance risk. It's possible that since we don't have all the details, we are not able to decide to really know what went wrong. But it's a risk that has now crystallized. And they were asked to go and pay a percentage of that money for the people to discuss, even in the court. It's an example of compliance risk. So if you find yourself as a finance person or accountant or auditor in your companies or your clients, you need to advise them on the risk of not complying with regulatory and the legal environment, because the cost of non-compliance might be greater than the cost of compliance. So, risk management is a process that identifies, that analyzes, and provides what we call risk response to those risk factors that form part of the life of a business. So when we talk about risk management, we are talking about a process that enables us to identify, to analyze, and to also come up with what we call risk response to those risk factors that form part of the life of a business. In the past, when you hear about risk management used to be purely insurance. Insurance is just one form of risk response, which we call risk transfer or risk sharing. So we have different risk responses, one of which is insurance. And insurance is just one part of risk sharing or risk transfer. You are transferring your risk to another person through insurance, one of the risk or response. So now, in managing our risk, the very first step is, like we said, was to define our objective. The second step is to identify what our risks are. Now, risk identification, risk analysis, these are courses on their own, and we're going to go into the tools. How do you identify your risk? What are the tools that you need to identify your risk? So effective risk management means you are now attempting to control as much as possible future outcome by acting proactively rather than reactively. That is the difference between traditional management and risk management. Traditional management wait for things to happen, then they start doing what we call crisis management. Crisis management is things that happen, you're not looking for solutions. But risk management, on the other hand, is proactive. It anticipates those things, anticipate those things that may happen, and before they happen, they have a response with it. I used to know someone who worked with Health. Health is an oil company in Nigeria. I don't know if they're still around. Those days they were called Health Petroleum. And this man worked in their corporate planning. And he told me that what they do in his own department every day is narrow scenario analysis, that they look at what if every condition. They just come up with different things. What if this happens to us as a company? What is going to happen? What are we going to do? And so they have all of those documented, every possible foreseeable thing that you can think of. They will just sleep and wake up and say, what if militant bomb our oil platform in the Niger Delta? What are we going to do? They have a solution waiting. What if earthquake happens? What if this happens? What if government happens? What if price fall? So they have over 1,000 scenarios, and they also have appropriate response, so that it will not come to them as a surprise when any of those things happen. They immediately respond. Now, for those of us that may have some idea of IT risk, there's something we call disaster recovery and business continuity. Disaster recovery and business continuity plan. Any company that has invested a lot in IT, they must have what they call disaster recovery or business continuity plan. You could see what happened to WhatsApp a few days ago, and then MTN yesterday as well. For those few hours, you can imagine the losses that those companies incurred for service outage. They had suffered some losses. For every minute network is down, they're losing revenue. So you could see that within few hours they were back. They were back on track because they have business continuity plan. It's part of risk management. You must always envisage that something can go wrong, and if it does go wrong, what should we do? This is not prayer. Prayer is not a form of risk management. Prayer is not a form of risk management. Prayer helps us do our things better, but it's not a form of risk management. Don't say it will not happen in Jesus' name. Yes, that's our prayer, but what if it happens? So we have to have effective risk management in our individual life as well as in our company as professionals. So like I showed you the first slide, that even in the animal kingdom, they also practice risk management, and that is why you see this rat that is well prepared to eat his food in case something happens. It might escape from this trap. So if animals does this, then we have to take it into more serious. I do not know if you can see this particular slide. It's a bit tiny. This is consequence from failure to manage company risk. I'm going to pick a few of these companies and read out what happened to them. Number one on this list, and this happened in the year 2018. Wells Fargo is a financial institution in the US, and what happened to them? They wanted to meet targets, so they put pressure on their sales team to create as many credits as possible. Just like we have in some Nigerian banks where they give their employees a lot of abnormal or crazy targets. So this company did. And what did the sales team do? They created a lot of bad credit, fictitious names and other fake accounts. Now, this bank was forced to do what? See how much they had to write off. Hello?
We are with you.
Okay, thank you. So because of that, the sales team devised a means to meet the target by creating fictitious accounts on the company, and this resulted into serious loss for them. They faced regulatory punishment. They had to pay a lot of fine. If you also look at Uber, in 2017, there were cases, reports of hello? Seems my network is breaking.
No, we are with you. You are talking and we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So sexual harassment of their customers by their drivers. This is reputational damage. This is an example of reputational risk. Ubers as a company is somewhere, but they engage third-party drivers to help in driving in the name of Uber. And at the end of the day, whatever happens to the customer is in the name of Uber. And therefore, their reputation was at stake. And here they had reputational damage because a lot of people now stopped taking Uber because of this problem. And so you have many of them. Even here in Nigeria, I'm sure we've had a lot of companies who have suffered one damage or the other because of something like this as well. Companies who ordinarily should have done better, but they are no longer in operation due to improper or lack of risk management, failure to manage their risk. It's a very important area for most companies. And you see, that is why today in bigger companies, you have, as part of their corporate governance structure, you must have on the board the board risk committee. Board risk committee. It's there. It's even a requirement in the bank that you must have board risk committee. Their job is to provide oversight. And the chief risk officer has to be appointed to ensure that they properly manage the company's risk. And that chief risk officer reports directly to the board. It's so powerful that he even reports, he checks on the MD, checks on everybody. He reports directly to the board. That is the role of chief risk officer. He coordinates all the enterprise risk of the company. You see, in the past, risk management was, traditional risk management was not elevated to this level. So risk was managed in what we call silos. Each unit, each department manages its own risk. If you work in a manufacturing company, the production director is only interested in what? Producing and ensuring its machineries are working well. He doesn't care whether what is producing is sold. The sales and marketing people are interested in selling. They don't care whether the production director is facing the problem or not. You see, at the management meeting, they will be fighting. See, this customer has placed order, I cannot deliver the order, the direct production team are not working, and you see problem. You see finance, our people, say there's no money. Production man say we need to produce, say there's no money because it's not. Thank you. That's good. Because of time, let's just chip in. You see, as risk managers, right, we have to follow that process that we do. Right? What is the of the next is what are the risks that they are facing and what are the risk factors? We have identified those risks, which is what you mentioned. But what about the factors? What are the factors causing those risks? Now, there's a particular risk we call operational risk. If you look at this slide, operational risk has to do with the risk factor under operational risk is people, processes, and systems. People, processes, and systems. So this is the risk that thrift collectors will face or are facing. And this is the way to address them. So we need to categorize what all these risks are first. That is when we'll be able to come up with specific risk response that will address their individual needs. So if we talk about people, who are their market, their customers? These are market traders, market women and men, people who sell daily and they're doing daily content. So some of them may not have bank accounts. Usually some of them don't have bank account because they do cash transactions. Now, what do you do? How do you collect the money from them in the first place? These days now, you are having a lot of POS people around, people who do agent bank. You have them around. So instead of the thrift collector going around, you will have to factor the cost of them going to a POS operator to deposit that money in his account into the, whether it is interest is charging or commission. He has to factor that into the commission. But he will reduce his risk of cash collection by asking them to use any available or nearest POS operator, deposit that cash with them, and those ones will pay into the thrift collector's account. So it does not need to go on daily basis. We'll have solved the problem of transportation costs. We'll have solved the problem of risk of being robbed. We'll have solved the problem of dispute over whether he has paid or he has not paid, because it has been well documented when that person pays to the POS. There must be an evidence that that money has been paid. So the thrift collector also must have a bank account. You cannot have a box in your house and be keeping cash, and you think somebody is not seeing. You're already creating an avenue for risk, So we can address these challenges using these three risk factors: people, processes, and systems. So the thrift collector will also encourage the customers, for those of them that have a phone, mobile phone, to open accounts. Banks are going around everywhere now, everybody to open accounts. So that is another way by which you can solve that problem. But most importantly is for the thrift collector to also define his risk level. If you know that in my area where I live, exposed to risk of armed robbery, because they know you do POS business or thrift collection business, and you keep money at home, they will always come around. So you have to, instead of keeping the safe at home, you have to open a bank account. So that is another way of managing. I hope we've been able to provide some solution. But the most important is to sit down, analyze the risk, and then look at the risk factors in coming up with solutions of the problem. Okay.
Yes. Can this document be sent to the group page? This document, can you send it to us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Because of time, I have another engagement in a few minutes. I'm actually 10 minutes late, but I have like 5 more minutes to spare. So the last slide there is talking about ERM, Enterprise Risk Management, because this is really where we are going. What we have done today is just to introduce us to risk management and its importance. So we're delving deeper into ERM. There are a lot of professional certification in this regards. You might want to do a FRM or Financial Risk Manager certification, operational risk, or enterprise risk. You could choose to also write the Institute of Internal Auditors exam. There's so many of those examinations that helps you to become a risk consultant or a risk officer, because this is an interesting area in our profession that is going to grow, and technology will not be able to push us out of business, at least not so soon, unlike accounting that it's already experiencing some challenges. So ERM here is a process, and when you say something is a process, it means it's systematic, it's defined. There's a particular order in which risk is managed. So it's a process effected by an entity board of directors, like I was explaining. It's a process effected by an entity board of directors, management, and other personnel applied in strategy setting and across the enterprise. It is designed to identify potential events that may affect the entity and manage risk to be within its risk appetite, to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of entities' objectives. This is our standard definition of enterprise risk management, and it is coming from COSO ERM framework. This definition is from the Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Tradeway Commission. So this is the organization as our standard on risk management, the most popular standard that every risk professional is very conversant with. So it's very detailed. We have a lot of materials to look at because the framework itself will enable you to appreciate what is required to perform this role as an enterprise risk or professional. So let me briefly go through traditional risk management. What are the characteristics? And then we compare with our ERM. Limited strategy, scope, and influence. Traditional risk management, like I explained, they look at risk in silos in different departments. They don't do enterprise. It's focused narrowly. It is negative. It's more of crisis management. It's reactive. It's when things has happened before we start running around. And there's no systematic understanding of correlation and interdependency of risk. Each department manages its own risk. Inconsistent risk reporting. There's no standard risk reporting. Everybody just reports what they think is risk to them. Ad hoc risk assessment. It's only when there's problem, as you know, in Nigeria, when there's a problem, government set up what? Committee. To go and do what? To look at what? Immediate and remote causes. That is what you will hear every time. Immediate and remote causes of what has gone bad. Because we're not doing risk management. Close communication. We're not open. We are not open. If finance department is having problem, compare this with our enterprise risk management. You can see it supports strategy and planning. I used to speak with my internal auditor professional colleagues that if you're an internal auditor and what you are doing is to be checking vouchers or to be looking for tips, then you're not doing risk-based internal auditing. You are doing traditional internal auditing. Because the best you will become is head of internal audit, and your office will be at the backyard. They will be bringing old voucher and files to you. But you will not know what is going on because you are not strategic. But if you adopt risk-based internal auditing, which is an adaptation of enterprise risk, you become very strategic and you'll be among the top management. So our ERM support strategy and planning is broadly focused. It's looking at the enterprise as a whole. It is positive. For instance, instead of saying cost control, accountant, cost control. We no longer talk about cost control. What do we talk about now? We talk about cost optimization. It's different from cost control. When you control costs, you say you have budgeted. We budget 20,000 for sales and marketing. 20, let's say 20 million for the year. And by November, they already exhausted that 20 million. No more money for them. Now, the sales and marketing director has an opportunity to travel for a contract negotiation somewhere. And there's high probability that he's going to win that contract. And he applies for IOU in finance. Give me money to travel to Port Harcourt. I have to go and sign off on a contract that worth 10 billion naira. And he goes to finance director, and the man said, you have exhausted your travel budget, and therefore the sales or marketing director was not able to go to Port Harcourt to sign the contract. Do you think the managing director and the board will clap for the finance director for managing the budget and finance well? It's going to be sacked. It's going to be sacked because he's trying to control costs at the expense of 20 billion contract. So what we do now in risk management is cost optimization. We're not limiting you from spending money, but we're telling you that for every penny that you spend, there must be what we call ROI, return on investment. So what is going to come back to the company if you spend this money? So that is the approach, the new approach to risk and to finance function. So you need to understand the bigger picture of the company to say, okay, this man is going to sign a contract that will give us 10 billion, and he only needs how much? 20 million to travel. Provided there's guarantee that we're going to get that contract, then this man can apply, even though he has exhausted his travel budget. So we still give him the money because we know he's bringing in bigger return. So that is what enterprise risk management does to us, even as finance person. So we have consistent risk reporting and also continuous risk assessment. Every time we keep assessing our risk. Open communication, and the approach is process driven and is value based, and there's clear ownership of types of risk. Everybody knows their risk, so there's no buck passing. All right, I think we should stop here for this session. So we will continue in 2 weeks' time with the second stage of this course. So let me now take a few questions before, if there's any question. Let's quickly do that before I sign out. Hello.
Okay, so let's drop our questions if we have any. It seems there is no question.
All right.
For now. So thank you very much. We so much appreciate it.
Sorry. Hello. Thanks so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Hello. Good evening, sir. Yes. Not really a question based on the topic, because I wasn't really able to pay full concentration on the session. But I just want to find out, like, are we going to, how often will we have something like this? Because I said that it's very, very educative and it's really, really benefiting.
Okay, it's going to be every 2 weeks. It's a series of presentation. ERM is a course, actually, and there's so many areas to it. So what we are doing here is to educate us. You know, some of us will have to write professional exams. Some of us will have to apply for some trainings and all that. But here is to give us the basics that we require to help us as we work now. And then also prepare us for if we want to take up career as in risk management, and to enlighten us on what to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Every 2 weeks will be done.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, let me thank everyone for coming on board. And I want to encourage you to continue to log in from time to time. We're having another session starting soon on ethics and ethics in our career and profession. So someone is going to be running that series very soon. I will also be joining from time to time on that session as well. we have discovered that what we need in Nigeria, beyond technical competence, we also need ethics, we also need integrity. Those are what we call social capital. Social capital. So it's very important that we understand the importance and how to develop this as we develop our career. We will be better off for it as time goes on. So kindly continue to participate on this platform for many of these type of opportunities. So thank you very much, and have a week ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Ayode, we are so grateful. So meet next.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.